So don't get it twisted. There was no DNA. There was no expert. My experts were denied. Why? Because President Trump is leading in the polls, and now we see what you get in New York.
Hey, my friends, we are in our conference room today. Get some different colors and different feels for the day. I am very excited about hearing from a lot of you over the past week, and keep the comments coming. Wanted to also, a few people contacted me, asking me for my phone number, and here it is, 619-672-1741. You could call me. And of course, the idea behind the show was run it by my lawyer, and anything, if you have a question, you could just run it by me. And if it's something that I could help you with, I'll try to. And if it's something that I can't handle or it's out of our jurisdiction, I'll try to find the right lawyer for you. And a lot of times, in just a few minutes, I've been able to save people from years of litigation by the simple words, that's not a good case. Don't file it. So anyhow, but anything you have, run it by me, and it'll be my pleasure to talk to you. Okay. So today we're going to talk about Donald Trump and this $83 million verdict. It's actually closer to $90 million. And to me, the whole case is so outrageous and crazy and interesting that you're just going to love hearing about it. All right. So it starts back from 1994. Now, don't worry, we're not going to go from 1994 until today. There's going to be about a 30-year gap before we pick up. All right. So about now, I don't know, and nobody knows if it was 1994, 1995, 1996, when this alleged incident happened. And the allegation, Jean Carroll has stated that she was in a department store in New York. Donald Trump was there. He was kind of hitting on her. And then at one point, he says something like, "Oh, I want to look for lingerie for my girlfriend or wife, whatever." And she kind of goes along with it and starts saying, "Oh, get this, get that." And they go into the dressing room together, and she was trying it on or something, and so one thing led to another. And according to her, he pushed her up against the wall. Her head hit the wall, and in about less than 3 minutes, I don't know how to say this correctly, he was kissing her, this and that, and then he, with his fingers, penetrated, okay? And that's going to be important, because in the state of New York, that is, if all that is true, it would be a sexual assault. The reason why I'm explaining this about the fingers and this and that, in the state of New York, like many states, an actual rape could only happen if the guy penetrates with his penis. So if he does it with his fingers or hand or whatever else, like a foreign object, all of that is not considered rape. Okay, and that's important, because she at one point said he raped me, he did this and that, which according to the law of New York, wasn't accurate. Okay, so that's why I mentioned it that way. So that all happens, and she doesn't remember if it was 1994, 1995, 1996. Okay. It was a long time ago, right? About 30 years ago. And that was it. That's what happened. And then he became president. He won the 2016 election against Hillary Clinton. And in 2017, he became president, right? And then she came public with this incident in the year 2019. And it was the day a report came out, or a news article that that explained her story and her version of the facts and all of that. He ends up denying it right away. So his side of the story is that none of this happened. He never met her at a department store. He doesn't know what she's talking about. He says, she's a nut job. She's not my type, so there's no way. He said, come on, she must have been around 60 years old when this happened. Things like that. So he's denying everything in very colorful ways. All right. And there was a 5-hour gap, which his lawyers make a big deal about, before he denied it. Like, so when the story came out online, it was a big deal. I mean, this is the president of the United States, right? And a lady saying that he raped her. She started receiving death threats from his, people that like Donald Trump. And the reason why it's important that he waited 5 hours, because his lawyers then later argued, well, any death threats or things like that that you're receiving from the public isn't a result of Donald Trump denying this. It's just a result of people being, weird and doing things like that. So that's why I mentioned that 5 hour gap there. Okay. So the story comes out in June 21, 2019. That very day, he denied it, and he, issues statements and starts talking and says things like, she's a liar, she's not my type, this thing never happened. I don't know who she is, all of the above, right? And then she filed a lawsuit against him, in November of 2019, claiming defamation. Now, in 2019, that was her only legal recourse, is that he's defaming me by denying everything and calling me crazy and a nut job and all this, and that he never met me. She wasn't allowed, because the statute of limitations had run, she wasn't allowed to sue him for the actual incident. She's only allowed to sue him for saying it didn't happen. You with me? Okay, so that whole lawsuit was only for defamation. Okay, then, and I've said this over and over, right? Zeke, you remember I've said this over and over. All of this is these rules of evidence. Now, good lawyering is getting, gathering the correct evidence and getting the evidence, the good evidence for your case, into the jury, like being admissible to the jury. And just as important, getting the bad evidence thrown out. All right. So evidence against you, somehow you find a way to keep it from the jury. And somehow her lawyers they were more successful in getting in good evidence and keeping bad evidence out than Donald Trump's lawyers were. It may not necessarily be his lawyer's fault. It could just be, the reality of the law and what he said and what he did and all of that. All right. So I'm going to go over some of this. Okay. In a deposition, okay, this one, I don't know. I don't know if it's funny or it's just, I laugh because it's, how the heck does someone say this? All right. So in a deposition, the lawyer for Jean Carroll asks Donald Trump, when you said publicly that she's not your type, what did you mean? You're not physically attracted to her? He said, no, she's not my type. I'm not physically attracted to her. Then, for no reason at all, he then looked at the lawyer for Jean Carroll and he told her,
you wouldn't be a choice of mine either, to be honest with you. I hope you're not insulted.
Why? See, it's funny, right? It's like, why would he say that? And I mean, it's just for no reason, and then for absolutely no reason, he said, I would not get together with you under any circumstances.
I would not, under any circumstances, have any interest in you.
All right. Like, who says that? It was just such a strange thing, So when the jury hears stuff like that, maybe they start thinking this guy's kind of a jerk. Maybe, I don't know. I would think so. So anyway, that evidence was kind of important, and it did come in. And then another piece of evidence that came in was there was this 1987 picture of Donald Trump and his wife, and there was Jean Carroll and her then husband. They were at some sort of celebrity thing in a line, and it just so happened that they were in the same area. They were all talking together. And then, because Donald Trump said, she's not my type. When they showed him that picture, which would have been about 8 years or so before the alleged, the sexual assault incident, when the lawyers for the plaintiff, Jean Carroll, was showing that picture, and they're like, well, he accidentally said that, oh, there's my wife, that's my wife, but he pointed at Jean Carroll. So he misidentified his wife for her. I mean, they do look, here's the picture, they do look I don't know, alike maybe. He later said, well, that picture was blurry and my back was toward the camera and whatever. I didn't see it very well, blah, blah, blah. So all of that evidence came in. So obviously the jury may be thinking that this guy, maybe she was his type and he's lying about it. Maybe she was, somebody that he'd be attracted to because she looked like his wife. And he said, oh, I was attracted to my wife, all of that coming in. Now, and then the other one coming in is when he kind of made fun of her, I guess you could say. He said, and she must have been about 60 years old. That came in because she was only 52 around that time, 1994, 1998, which would have been about 3-4 years older than him. Now, there was a lot of issues about DNA and sperm and all that good stuff, right? Reminds me of the Monica Lewinsky dress, okay? So something similar happened here. Jean Carroll stated that she kept the pants that she was wearing on that day, and she kept it hung up for 30 years. She preserved it, freaking like the Smithsonian Museum here, okay? Which is what Monica Lewinsky did. I don't know. People, there's like souvenirs, you could say, right? So
it goes for a lot of money.
It goes for a lot of money. Yes. I would bid a lot on it, I think. Okay. So I know Mateo, he's like, Mateo, can you stop? It's not for sale, Mateo. Stop Googling it, dude. Okay. I'm trying to be professional here. This guy. Okay. So she preserved it, right? And then she had some sort of, her lawyers got a DNA expert, and then they said, okay, there's some DNA that is belongs to a man. Okay. It's not female DNA. And then they wanted Donald Trump's DNA to try to, corroborate if it was his or not. And Donald Trump, it was kind of a weird thing. He said, okay, I'll give it to you, but I want to get her DNA, and I want to make sure that if it's not mine, that we, present it or we kick the case out, things like that. And they couldn't kind of reach an agreement on how to do this. And then very importantly, there was no sperm DNA. Okay. So being that there's no sperm, then the judge said, well, if there's no sperm, that doesn't, whatever we find out, it's not going to show that he is guilty, he's not guilty, this, that. So the judge just said, I don't want any of that in here. No talk about the DNA. Okay. For whatever reason. So all of that was then not included. All right. A couple of other things that were very important. And this is the $90 million worth of evidentiary rulings. She allegedly, after this happened in 94 to 96, she told two of her friends. I'll just say the first names. All right. She told a Lisa and a Carroll. And this one is where she told them Donald Trump did this and that, blah, blah, blah. Right. So that evidence the judge did allow. Okay. And that's pretty important evidence because that kind of corroborates her story, that around that time, and those two ladies didn't know what year it was either. They said that, yeah, I remember her telling me about this sometime in the mid 90s. That kind of corroborates her story a little bit because remember, in defamation lawsuits, they have a defense, which is called like the truth is a defense, meaning, so it's like that whole lawsuit was over defamation. But if it's true that Donald Trump didn't do all of this, then he can't be liable for defamation. So even though the trial is over defamation, all of a sudden we have to determine, because of that defense, we have to determine if this alleged sexual assault, rape actually happened. Do you see what I'm saying? So that evidence of those two were admissible. So obviously a very big thing against him. The other one, do you remember the Access Hollywood tape? Remember the infamous, if you like a girl, you and your star, you just grab them by the, remember that, right? Okay, grab them by the P word, okay? I am surprised, and this will be an issue on appeal, that was admissible. Even though I think the jury all knew he said that, but for that to come up in the trial, The judge said it just kind of shows his demeanor or his attitude toward women. Okay. And then there's more again about this evidence. There were two ladies that their evidence was admissible. One was a former flight attendant that said, he brought her or he kind of got one flight attendant to get her to go to first class to hang out with him. And then he sexually assaulted her. And then another one that claimed that he sexually assaulted her at Mar-a-Lago. Those two ladies, they were able to testify. And obviously the reason why that's important is because the court or the jury would then, be allowed to hear that and be allowed to hear this kind of argument that this guy was doing this all around, to a lot of people, and he's talking about it. He's doing this, he's doing that. So all of these are very, very important pieces of evidence. Now, the other things that will one day go up on appeal, like very soon, is that the judge, a lot of times when Donald Trump was in court, the judge would kind of like berate him over like, stop talking at a turn or stay quiet and this and that. And at one point when his lawyer was kind of talking at a turn or interrupting or this, that, he even told Donald Trump's lawyer, Ms. Haba, that, you might be locked up soon. All right. Those are all big dealings, right? To me, I am a little biased here. I don't like this judge. I'm going to tell you why. Why are we not allowed to see all of this? Instead, we have these stupid court sketches, and we can't. Wouldn't you like to watch all this? We have here a former president who's the Republican, front runner to becoming the next candidate for president, and he's testifying in a rape trial, and we can't watch any of this.
Utter lack of transparency.
It just, to me, the federal court has to start allowing videotape. Otherwise, I don't even blame all the people, the MAGA, people or this, that. I don't blame them for saying this whole thing is corrupt because they can't watch it. It's crazy to me that they cannot watch this. Johnny Depp, do you remember that trial? We were able to watch all of that. So at some point, the American public has to start asking, why are they allowing us to watch Johnny Depp's trial and not Donald Trump? Right? Johnny Depp has nothing to do with the governance of the whole country, right? He's not running for president. He was never the president. Do you know what I'm saying? I don't know why this is so. So the first thing that has to happen is all of these trials have to be televised. Otherwise, like you said, there's no transparency. And these times, Donald Trump testified, and in the federal court, they say this but the state court, state courts allow cameras, federal court doesn't, which isn't even true. In New York, there was another trial down the street. There was a state trial, the state of New York suing Donald Trump for fraud and this and that, seeking hundreds of millions of dollars. That's a state trial. And that also Donald Trump testified, and it's not something we could watch. That is a big, big, big pet peeve of mine. Anyhow, all of these things will be issues on appeal. All right. Now, it's kind of weird, okay, what I'm about to tell you. So that case, the first case, it was as it was going on, the Department of Justice got involved saying, well, when Donald Trump made those statements in June of 2021, there were statements that he made while he was president and it was in the office of the presidency kind of, so we're going to remove the case to Washington, D.C., to the federal court in Washington, D.C., and we're going to defend Donald Trump. That one was interesting that all of that happened in the scope of his employment. That issue took a couple years. It was ultimately decided that it was not in the office, in the scope of his employment. So they allowed it to go back to New York. But before there was a trial in New York, that issue went on appeal in Washington, D.C. to the appellate court there. Don't you love it? All right. So for the first 3 years of that lawsuit, it was actually, I'm sorry, 4 years. It took 4 years for that decision to be made. In the interim, listen to this, everyone sitting down, okay? In the state of New York passed this law. It was called the Adult Survivor Act, which said that all of these cases for the sexual assault, when the statute of limitations ran, for adults and for kids, there were two different laws. The one for kids gave more time period to go back and stuff. They would extend the statute of limitations. So for this alleged sexual assault that happened in 1994, 1995, or 1996, the statute of limitations ran, over 20 years ago. But this new law in New York said if you miss the statute of limitations, we're going to give you a couple of years where there's no statute of limitations issue. You with me? So that's kind of, helpful in terms of then she was able to file a new lawsuit saying that he sexually assaulted me and he raped me. So that's the second lawsuit. All right. The reason why this is important is because in the second lawsuit, she's actually claiming damages for the actual incident, right? The first one was just the defamation. So the second one was for the actual incident, and it was for defamation because since that 2019 statement, he kept talking. This guy, Donald Trump, he kept yapping, all right, for better or worse. And on his Truth Media, he would put out hundreds of statements about this, right? Or retweet or or this or that, right? This statement was the subject of the second lawsuit that he's saying this Bergman-Goodman case, Bergdorf-Goodman, sorry, that's the name of the department store, is a complete con job. So he's calling this girl a con job. I don't know this woman. I have no idea who she is, other than it seems she has a picture of me from many years ago with her husband shaking my hand at a reception line. She completely made up a story that I met her at the doors of a crowded department store and within minutes swooned her. Swooned was his word for sexually intercoursing her. All right. It's a hoax and a lie, just like all the other hoaxes, blah, blah, blah. Right. So again, he's calling her. And then he says, if you watch Anderson Cooper's interview with her, she is promoting a really crummy book. You will see this in the complete scam. So because she sold a book about this, she wrote a book about this. And he's saying that she's selling her book and she's trying to make money off this. So that statement in October 2022 and the New York allowing her to sue for her for the actual, rape, sexual assault, whatever you want to call it. So that lawsuit came out. And so that's the second lawsuit. It's kind of strange because of that first lawsuit, how it was going through the Department of Justice and there was all this debate over whether or not that first case was part of his presidency. In October 2022, he wasn't president, right? So that one, there wasn't that issue. So it's weird. The second lawsuit went to trial before the first lawsuit because they didn't have to deal with that jurisdictional issue. So we go to May of 2023. Finally, we could do the second lawsuit, which went to trial first. There, Donald Trump loses, I say loses, he won a couple of things, but he loses, and the jury claimed that he owes her $5 million. This is really important, okay? So this is the only one where it actually involved damages for the alleged incident. So it's not just defamation. So the second lawsuit was she sued him because he sexually assaulted her, and she sued him because he defamed her, after he became president. So that's lawsuit number 2. You with me? And that one goes first, like I said. The first question that the jury had to answer, this is what's called a verdict form. I'll put a picture of this right here. The verdict form. Did Miss Carroll prove by a preponderance of the evidence that Mr. Trump raped her? The jury said no. All right. The reason why that's important is because after this, she went on CNN. She did these other interviews and she kept saying Donald Trump raped me. And then Donald Trump sued her saying, hey, now you're defaming me because you're saying I raped you when the jury said that I didn't. You see what I'm saying? To my surprise, the judge immediately threw that lawsuit out. The reason the judge later said why he threw that out, he said, well, that word rape, even though legally the jury found that he didn't, the common perception of that word, kind of applies. So I could see why she would keep saying that. I don't know. To me, it's like, I think a jury should have tried that. And by the way, rules of evidence, in the second case that went to trial, he wasn't allowed to bring that up. The fact that she kept saying that he raped me when the jury in the first trial, said that he didn't. Do you see what I'm saying? So, all right. The jury then said, did Mr. Trump sexually abuse Miss Carroll? The jury said yes. So they believed her story that this whole thing happened. What they believe happened was that, he ultimately, did all this and that with his fingers, he penetrated this and that. And that's where they get this, that he sexually assaulted her. Remember, it doesn't fall within the definition of rape though, okay? Then Miss Carroll, was she injured because of his conduct? They said yes, meaning like, did that sexual assault damage, like upset her kind of? And then they said, if so, what do you want to give her to compensate her? They said $2 million. So all of this, of the whole $90 million, $2 million only was for the damage for the actual sexual assault. You with me, Zeke? All right. So the other $88 million was for defamation and like a punitive damages, like related to the defamation. So there you go. You $2 million for that. The jury then said, was his conduct kind of willful and negligent and just a conscious disregard to her? The jury said yes, and we'll give her another 20 grand for that. That was kind of funny, 20 grand. Then they said, okay, did he defame her? Yes. And then they said, what was her injury because of the defamation to her reputation? They put $1 million. And that was because she said, she testified, after he called me a nut job and crazy and denied everything, people then thought I was a liar, so they gave her another $1 million for that. And then insert a dollar amount for any damages for the reputation repair program, meaning if she wants to, then how much would it cost her to put out advertisements and things like that to repair her reputation? Like if she wanted to take mitigation efforts to repair her image, the jury gave her another $1.7 million. And then, and then another $300,000 for that defamation being so reckless. So there you have it. That is $5 million. I don't want to do the math here. Let me see. 2, 3, 4. Yeah, $5 million. It was $5 million. So the jury gave her $5 million. That is a lot of money, and that is $2 million for the actual sexual assault, and then $3 million for everything else. Okay, that happens on May 9, 2023. Is it over?
Nothing is over. Nothing.
Come on. Okay. Then we have the now this was the second lawsuit. Okay, and it went to trial first. So there's still that first trial that never had gone to trial. The first trial was only defamation, and only that defamation from like 2019, 2020. Okay, and that's it. Okay, it was just for that year and a half of defamation. And this is where we're gonna get into an $83 million verdict. Okay, this one is just crazy to me. What happened after May 2023, the day after the verdict came out, Donald Trump was on an interview, as I recall. It was on CNN, and he kept saying the same thing over and over. She's lying. She's a nut job. She's crazy. I never met her. I never knew her. This whole thing is made up. He would say things like this, and it was true. There was the guy who started LinkedIn or something. It was this billionaire. He was like financing the law firm because he hates Donald Trump so much. He's saying, so that guy is just out to get me, blah, blah, blah. That was also evidence that was not admissible. I think that was pretty fair. It doesn't matter who's financing it, I guess. So he went on air saying all of that. She also went on air after that. And then when the journalist asked her, did Donald Trump rape you? She said, yes, he did. Even though this jury just came back and said, no, he did not. Okay, that's going to be important in terms of evidence. All right. So then this is May 2023. Then we fast forward to January 2024. We have a trial for the first case that was filed. Okay. And again, that is only for defamation in 2019, half of 2019 and 2021. That's it. When he called her crazy and he denied everything. Very, very quickly, because it's so important. All right, the issue of evidence in that case. Let me explain a few things. Donald Trump lost a motion to be able to deny the sexual allegation. Let me explain what happened. The judge in that case is the same judge in both cases. He said, well, because the jury in the other case said that you sexually assaulted her, I'm going to limit this trial to only damages, and I'm not going to allow any defense about sexual assault, meaning like whether or not it's true that you deny it and that it didn't happen. So all of that evidence would be inadmissible. So we're just going to tell the jury that you sexually assaulted her. And we're not going to tell the jury that you did not rape her, and that even though she was saying that you did. Okay. So that is pretty big evidence to lose. And he lost it, and that's going to be an issue on appeal. He wasn't allowed to say, who financed the litigation. I think that's fair. He wasn't allowed to discuss that her motive, is just money and selling her book. He wasn't allowed to say any of that. He wasn't allowed to talk about who financed the case. Those are a lot of things to not be able to talk about, right? And that after the May 2023 verdict, he kept bad mouthing her. Okay. If I was his lawyer, I would have probably said, listen, just let me do the talking. You know what I'm saying? That's it, right? I would have just said, hey, he already made a statement about this. So if you want, you could go back to that statement. He's not going to make any more statements. So then people could just say, they could repeat the statement he already made. He can't get resued for that one statement. Again, do you see what I'm saying here? But he doesn't listen. I think his lawyers did tell him that. He probably just didn't listen, So now we get to January 2024. We have a whole new trial. And again, not over the sexual assault, only for that year and a half of him denying this and making fun of her. This is why I tell people you never know what's going to happen if you go to the jury. And they made this outrageous claim. I mean, they were looking for like $10 million for that year and a half of making fun of her and calling her a nut job and denying it. They ended up, instead of getting $10 million, they ended up getting $83 million. All right. Another piece of evidence that was allowed in that trial was that in a different case, Donald Trump, in this case where New York sued him, when he was borrowing money from different banks to buy properties and refinance properties, he would say he's worth billions of dollars to the banks, and they were allowed to get into evidence that he's worth billions of dollars, and so maybe the jury's, and then they were allowed to tell the jury, if the only way we're going to stop this billionaire is if we hit him hard in the pocketbook. So that's why they were allowed. So they fought that, saying that evidence shouldn't be included. And they lost. So that's another issue on appeal. They'll say that wasn't fair that evidence got to them. Okay, so here we go. Did Miss Carroll prove that she suffered damages as a result of Donald Trump's publication in June of 2019? And that's just publication of him saying, I deny this and she's crazy. They said, yes, she did suffer damages over that. How much is a fair amount to compensate her? They said $18 million. All right, 18.3 million to be exact, over that defamation. Then they said he did defame her. Was it malicious, vindictive, okay, or reckless? They said yes, because if you defame somebody but you kind of did it in good faith, you know what I'm saying, like it was an accident that you lied or that you told something that wasn't true, they're asking the jury, did he intentionally lie and intentionally, I guess that's repetitive, intentionally lie, right? Because Yeah. Did he lie? You could accidentally lie, but then they'll just be like, you misstated. Or anyway, was he reckless or intentional and vindictive about this? The jury said yes. Then they said, all right, well, because he was vindictive and he lied, about this, what do you give her for that? After you gave her 18 million point three. Give us, if it was willful, you're allowed to give her more. They said $65 million for that. God, don't you wish you could watch Donald Trump's testimony? How did the jury hate him so much, right? Can we watch it? It wasn't videotaped. In fact, I don't understand why. Okay, at most, maybe the judge could say, well, if we videotape it and people are watching it during the trial, like if it's being live streamed, maybe the jury will be tampered with or something. But no, because like, why can't we watch it now? Right? Like it's already, the trial is over, right?
Nothing.
Oh, I can't use the nothing is over because the trial is over. Okay. The issue of damages. I always tell people, like, let's say, whatever, you get, you have a boss that's like sexually harassing you or something, right? Even if it's true, even if, okay, we have these emails or text messages from the boss to the employee saying, I want to go out with you, or I want to do this, or he's sending her dirty pictures or something. Even if there's liability, then the next question is, what are the damages? Meaning, my favorite way to say this, Mateo, is if someone told you, hey, you're getting a check today, what would be your next question? How much? That's damages. Do you see what I'm saying? So there's liability. And then if there is liability, you're getting a check. The next question is how much? That's the damages. I cannot for the life of me figure out how $83 million for him denying this and not for the actual rape. Do you remember or the sexual assault that the judge said, the common perception is that it's a rape, but not the legal definition. That was only $2 million. So after that, $2 million, even in the second case, they gave her $3 million for defamation, but this one only for part of the defamation of that year and a half, they gave her $83 million. I think, and it's not about whether or not I like Trump, I don't like Trump. I'm not a Trumper. I'm not, an anti-Trumper. I don't even, I'm a lawyer. Like I kind of look at this through the legal lens. I don't see how that kind of defamation. I mean, I've had cases where people were freaking crippled from a car crash and they'd get like $2 million or something, or a kid was, sexually assaulted when they were a kid, and then they end up getting like $4 million or $5 million. I don't know how this one, she got $90 million total, only two for this alleged incident, and then 88 just for him denying it. So I guess if he would have just kept his mouth shut, he would have saved $88 million. Yeah, that's what I think. I think it's disproportionate. My feeling is that he'll appeal this, and I think it somehow, my gut feeling is that either the appellate court will give him a new trial. That one is a small chance. I think the other chance would be that they reduce this verdict by a lot. I mean, like the jury could have came back about like $10 billion, or what was it that in that movie Austin Powers, the jury could have given him $1 billion, right? I would love to hear what you think. Please let me know. You can call me 619-672-1741 about, any legal questions you have or about this, or put it in the comments. I love hearing from you folks. I'll see you next week.